My family is more complicated than I ever thought. I thought we were close. But then, everything changed in a moment I'll never forget. One phone call, and my world came crashing down. The joy I felt instantly turned to pain, and what happened after, well, I still can't believe it even occurred. Why did they do this to me? Why didn't they think I'd care? I had no idea things had gone this far until I found out, in the most unexpected way. I wish I had known the truth earlier. Now, I don't know who I can trust. I always thought my family was very close-knit, like an inseparable unit. We shared everything with each other, from happy stories to sad ones and the important moments in life. As the eldest, I always felt a sense of responsibility to protect and care for my siblings. Sarah, my younger sister, has always been the lively and energetic one. Emma, the youngest, is more reserved, but she is the one I feel closest to. As time went on, we thought nothing could break the bond we shared. Since Emma had fertility issues, I felt our relationship became even more special. She had endured so much pain and disappointment, but in the end, she and her husband were able to conceive through IVF. I remember the overwhelming happiness I felt when I heard the news that Emma was pregnant. I couldn't stop smiling, knowing that she truly deserved this joy after everything she had gone through. I eagerly awaited the day Emma's baby would be born, always ready to support and share in those happy moments. But there was something I just couldn't understand. Why was I always left out of the important events? There had been a few times before when I noticed I wasn't included in family events, occasions that I thought I should have been a part of. For example, Emma's graduation. I remember preparing everything for that day, ready to go and congratulate her. But in the end, I realized I hadn't received any invitation. When I asked Emma about it, she told me she thought I wouldn't want to attend. Then there was the family gathering after our grandfather passed away. I was the only one not invited. They said they thought I wouldn't want to be there, even though I really wanted to be. I didn't understand why they thought that. No one in the family ever mentioned that I could have joined. Still, I made an effort to maintain a good relationship with Emma because I truly cared for her and wanted to share in her joy. When Emma was pregnant, I bought her a lovely gift set, along with a handmade blanket that our grandmother had knitted for my own child before she passed. I was proud of that gift because it wasn't just a beautiful item. It carried the love of our family. When Emma was about to give birth, I was incredibly excited. She mentioned that she only wanted our parents and her husband's family to visit her at the hospital in the first few days. I completely understood and respected that, as it was a special moment between Emma and her husband. They needed some private time to welcome their first child. And then, one day, on the day she gave birth, I received a call from Emma at 1 p.m. I was thrilled to hear her introduce me to her son through the phone screen. It was a moment I thought I would never forget. But when Emma handed the phone to my mom, I was shocked to hear something I never expected. My mom said that Sarah was already there. My heart felt like it had been squeezed. Why hadn't they called me to come? Why was I left out of such an important moment? That moment when my mom told me Sarah was already at the hospital felt like a slap to my face. The feeling of emptiness and disappointment washed over me like a crashing wave. Why Sarah and not me? We had shared so many memories, especially the important moments. Why was I left out again? Once again, I found myself excluded from a family event that I should have been part of. I tried to control my emotions when my mom mentioned that Sarah had been there from the very beginning, while I had only received a call at 1 p.m. The feeling of being abandoned made my throat tighten, and I couldn't say anything more. My mom explained that they thought I wouldn't be able to make it because of work, but I had made it clear to her beforehand that if they needed me, I could leave work without hesitation. I didn't need them to make that decision for me. But clearly, they hadn't thought of that. I thought they understood me better, but it turned out they didn't care about my feelings. As someone who always respects the privacy of my family, I had fully accepted Emma's request for only both sides of the parents to visit in the first few days. But to be left out of the most significant moment in her life made me feel excluded, like I wasn't an important part of this family. That hurt more than all the times before when I wasn't invited to other events. Each time, I told myself not to get too upset, But this time, I couldn't. This was the most important moment in Emma's life, and I couldn't accept being left out. I sat down, feeling like my entire world had just collapsed. A sense of loss and loneliness overwhelmed me. I had always been the one to protect the family, the one my siblings could rely on, but now I felt like I didn't have a place in this family anymore. How could I stay silent when the truth was so clear? I decided to call my mom right away. But as soon as I picked up the phone, I felt like I couldn't find the words. The emotions were so overwhelming that I couldn't stay calm. For the first time in my life, I felt completely abandoned, and I couldn't understand why my family was treating me like this. My mom answered in a calm tone, as if everything was perfectly normal. "Don't be upset, we just thought you were busy." But I couldn't accept that anymore. The feeling of being deceived and dismissed made it impossible for me to stay composed. I said things that I later regretted, but in that moment, I just needed her to understand how deeply hurt I was. In the end, I hung up. Not because I didn't love my mom, but because I couldn't take it anymore. The feeling of being abandoned, of being ignored, had crossed a line for me. I didn't want to make a scene, but this time I couldn't hold it in. After that, I felt an invisible distance between me and the family, a distance I didn't know how to bridge. My mind was flooded with questions. Am I still a part of this family? A few days after the call with my mom, I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. Every time I remembered that moment, when my mom told me Sarah was already at the hospital, my heart would tighten. Why was I left out? I couldn't understand my family's actions. It was such a heavy shock, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. The feeling of loneliness and abandonment clung to me every hour, every minute. I sat motionless in the living room, doing nothing but thinking about everything that had happened. Never before had I felt so disregarded in my family, especially when I had been ready to be there for the important moments. On top of that, I had clearly told Emma and my mom that if anything was needed, I would be there in an instant, even though I was at work. Why hadn't they thought of that? Now, Sarah was prioritized while I was left out. I tried to hold myself together, but after days of thinking and staying silent, the tension inside me became unbearable. I decided to call Emma. This time, I couldn't stay silent anymore. I wasn't sure if I should say everything I was feeling, but I couldn't continue carrying this hurt without speaking up. The call connected, and Emma's voice came through. My heart raced, but I tried to stay calm. "Emma, can you explain to me? Why was I left out of the most important moment of your life?" I asked, my voice trembling but unable to hold back the disappointment that was rising. A long pause followed, and then Emma responded in a calm but clearly somewhat confused tone. "I'm really sorry, but I didn't think you would feel this way. The thing is, you weren't the only one we wanted to share this with." Emma's words hit me like another slap to the face. How could she say that? I'm the eldest, the one who has always been there, supporting everyone. Why wasn't I the first one she wanted to share this joy with? The hurt surged up again, and I couldn't stay calm any longer. "You didn't think I would feel this way? You really didn't think I was important enough to you for this moment?" I said, my voice now filled with anger. "Why couldn't you just tell me beforehand that you wanted me there? Why hide everything?" Emma was silent for a moment, then let out a sigh, almost as if she was taking a step back. "I don't know how to explain it, but we didn't want to bother you. We knew you had work, you were busy." Emma's answer wasn't enough to convince me. How could they think I wouldn't want to be there for this family moment? How many times had I put family before my work, my personal life, and yet this time I was excluded? I felt trapped in a whirlwind of emotions. Hurt, anger, and disappointment all tangled together, and I didn't know what to do next. Still, I couldn't hold back anymore, and I ended the call. At that moment, I just felt exhausted, drained, and empty. That call didn't bring any resolution. It only made everything feel more distant. Now, I was left with questions. Why were they treating me like this? And could I really continue to live in a family where I no longer felt respected? After the call with Emma, I couldn't do anything but sink into my thoughts. Every time I reflected on what had happened, the pain would rise again. Why was I treated this way in my family? Why wasn't I considered an important part of such sacred moments? The feeling of being abandoned, ignored, became more and more palpable, and I didn't know how to ease this pain. I spent the whole day sitting alone in my room, not wanting to go outside or talk to anyone. I didn't want to bother anyone, but I couldn't bear this feeling alone anymore. The questions kept looping in my mind. Do I even matter in this family anymore? Do they truly understand me, or am I just a useless part of their lives? After several days of silence, I decided I had to talk to Mom. I couldn't keep hiding my emotions like this, because it was slowly destroying me. When I walked into the living room and saw Mom reading a book, it felt like I was about to face a battle. The feeling of anxiety and tension was almost suffocating. But I knew if I didn't speak now, I would never be at peace again. "We need to talk, Mom," I started, trying to keep my voice steady. Mom looked up at me, her expression serious as if she already knew what was coming. "What's the matter, sweetheart?" she asked, but I could see in her eyes the avoidance, like she knew I wasn't happy but didn't want to confront the truth. "It's about Emma and Sarah," I said, my voice still calm but growing tense. "You know I really wanted to be there for Emma, but why was it just Sarah? Why did you and the family think I didn't need to be part of it?" Mom stayed silent for a moment, then sighed. "You have work, you're busy," she replied softly, but I could sense something distant in her voice, as if she was trying to avoid my question. "We just wanted everything to go smoothly, you know?" "No, Mom," I cut in, unable to hold back anymore. "It's not that. You don't get to decide for me. I told you beforehand I could come if they needed me. I'm not just someone to be left out of the family." Mom looked at me, her gaze now a little confused. "Don't be upset," she said. "We just didn't want you to worry about work, that's all." I felt my throat tighten, but I couldn't take it anymore. "You don't understand, do you? This isn't about work. This is about family. This is about who I am in this life." My voice rose, the tension in me spilling over. Mom stayed silent, not saying anything more. The air in the room became heavy, and I felt like I was standing at a crossroads. I wanted Mom to understand me, but I didn't know how to make her realize the hurt I was feeling. In the end, all I could do was walk away without any answer. The questions still swirled in my head, but I had no idea what to do next. The emptiness once again consumed me. Now I was left with only one thought. Could I ever find my place in this family again, or would I forever be the one left behind? I don't know how long I had been thinking about this, but I felt like I was standing on the edge of a breakdown. The feelings of hurt, anger, and disappointment were relentless. After the conversation with my mom, I thought things would get better, but in reality, they didn't. Everything seemed even more uncertain, and I felt more abandoned than ever. I decided to try one more time to clear things up, but not with Mom or Emma. This time, I wanted to talk to Sarah. I felt like she was the one who truly understood the situation. After all, Sarah had always been closer to me, and I didn't want my relationship with her to be hurt by this too. After thinking it over for a while, I decided to text Sarah. "Can we talk? I feel really hurt and need to understand what happened." That was all I could write in that moment. I didn't know if Sarah would respond, but I had no other choice. The need to resolve this conflict was too overwhelming for me to stay silent any longer. When I received her reply, Sarah immediately called me. This time, I felt like a storm of emotions was about to hit. "Sis, I really don't know what to say. I'm sorry if you feel left out, but we really didn't think it would hurt you like this," Sarah said, her voice full of worry and guilt. "Why didn't you think that way?" I asked, my heart tightening in my chest. Why was it Sarah and not me? You know how much I mean to the family, but so do you. Why was I left out? Sarah was silent for a moment, then let out a sigh. "I don't know how to answer you properly, but I think it's because I've always been there. You have your work. You're always busy." Sarah's answer felt like a knife to my heart. Yes, I had been busy, but I never said I didn't want to participate. In fact, I had made it clear that I could come if needed. "But don't you understand, Sarah?" I said, my voice breaking. The feeling of being left out, ignored. "You don't know how many things I've sacrificed for this family. Why didn't you think I mattered?" Sarah started to cry, and it only made me feel worse. "I'm sorry, I didn't know what to do to make it up to you," she sobbed. "I just wanted everything to go smoothly, but I didn't think about how you would feel." I stayed silent, my heart breaking even more. Even though Sarah apologized, I felt like things still weren't resolved. The hurt was still there, and I didn't know if I could ever forgive my family. How could I continue being part of a family where I no longer felt valued? The conversation ended in silence. I didn't know what to do next. I was so exhausted, but I couldn't live with this inner turmoil forever. The questions were still there, and the pain had yet to heal.